Hey friends, it's Len here at 1A Auto. Today I'm working on a 2013 Ford F250. I'm going to be doing a front wheel bearing. It's going to be fairly easy. I want to be the guy that shows you how to do it. If you need this or any other part, you can always check us out at 1aauto.com. Thanks. Okay, so we've got the vehicle safely raised and supported, so it's going nowhere. We'll just check the front end. I just give it a little wiggle so I know what I'm dealing with. Do the same thing to the other side, just in case you need to replace any other front end parts. At this point, I'm sure you know what you need and what you don't. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this cover right here. It's a little slot. Take something as basic as a rag, just so I don't mess up my wheel. I'm just gonna go like this. These lug nuts are 21mm lug nuts, okay? And the wheel's gonna be fairly heavy, obviously. It's a 20-inch wheel, so just keep that in mind when you're removing these and it's time to remove the wheel. It's gonna be heavy. Now I can walk away. I don't have to worry about the wheel falling. I can put down all my lug nuts so I can grab onto this securely or firmly. I can shake it around. If it hasn't broken free, it's gonna be fairly easy. All I'm gonna do, you can take a rubber mallet or whatever you have and try to whack on the back of the wheel / tire. If you're using a metal hammer, obviously don't hit the wheel. But a rubber mallet, you can hit the wheel, it's okay, it won't hurt it. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a long pry bar. I'm gonna go between the knuckle right here and the wheel, and I'm gonna pry it out. I still have that lug nut on there, so this wheel will not come off and hit the ground and come flying and hurt me or anything like that. So I'm just gonna go like this. I'm going to use a little bit of leverage. I should want to break free. Here we are. Pretty corroded on there. Okay. Take off this last lug nut. Here comes the heavy wheel. Just going to shake it around a little bit. All right, we got that off. We'll wheel this over to a safe position, and then we'll continue on. So we've got a little bit of penetrant spray. Let's go ahead and use it. Just gonna spray here, okay? Anytime you do front end work, it's always a good idea to do an alignment. So any type of alignment areas that have threads, you'd wanna do those, you know, going up and around the whole thing. I'll do those later. But I'll continue with what I'm gonna be taking apart. So I'm gonna be taking off these caliper bracket bolts. The odds that this penetrant's gonna get in there is pretty nil, but I'll just put a little spritz on there. Of course, I'm wearing safety glasses, just to mention, in case any of this sprays back up in my face. Okay, I got a little bolt up here. This holds the ABS wire on. And there's a couple more up this way. So I'm just gonna spray those. This is just gonna help me get everything out down the line. This rotor is gonna have to come off. So I'll spray that. I just like to spray around all the studs. You can do you. You do you, boo-boo. That on there. We're gonna be taking off this right here. This is the locking hub. So there's a couple little bolts here. We'll just get everything sprayed ahead of time. This is your lock, obviously. Should wanna turn. Obviously, this one hasn't been maintained very well. God forbid you ever have to really turn it in the case of an emergency and have to put on your four-wheel drive, right? But anyway, this should want to turn, so you can grab pliers or whatever you want to do. Anyway, I'm not worried about that right now. I just wanted to show you spraying everything down ahead of time. So now that we've got that done, I'm just going to make sure that I got all the tools that I'm going to need. I'm going to take off this cotter pin. I'm going to take off this little, whatever you call it, nut lock, I guess you'd say right here. Slides right up, and then underneath here, there's a nut. We're gonna take this off and then put it back on, just a couple threads, and we're gonna whack right here with a hammer, okay? If you have a new one, you can go ahead and cut it. If you're reusing it, obviously, be a little bit more careful with it. I have a whole bunch of cotter pins at my disposal, so I'll be replacing it. So I'm really not too worried about damaging it, but essentially, you just wanna do whatever you gotta do to get it out of here. This little thing right here, should want to lift up. There we go. Okay, we'll put this aside. Next is our nut right there. Check my socket, 21mm. You can use a ratchet, you can use your air gun, whatever you've got. I'm going to use an air gun. Okay, at this point, this could fall down, so you'd want to be careful, obviously. I'm going to make sure that I'm safe. I'm going to put my nut back on, okay? Just a few threads, because I'm going to be taking it back off in a minute. But now that this is on, I can whack the knuckle right here with my hammer, and this should drop down. Once it drops down, it'll get caught by the nut, and then I can continue on. So here we go, I'm underneath. I'm going to be very careful, obviously. I don't want anything falling down and hurting me. I'm going to use my big fabulous hammer. I'm going to try to whack right here. You can put a little smiley face or whatever you have to do to make sure that that's where you hit. You don't want to obviously hit the rotor, this boot, the stud especially. Okay, so anyway, just aim for it and hit it. Drop down, I can see the stud. Wonderful. I'm going to come up and out from under here. Lift up on it. Take this nut off. Let this swing down. You can tie it up, you can do whatever you need to do. I'm not super worried about it right this second, but you know what, maybe I will just tie it up. Just for the purpose of the video, safety-wise. But it's, your prerogative. So now what we're gonna do, so we make sure we don't stretch this ABS wire, even though we're replacing it, it's always good habit to make sure that you pay attention to that. And if you can avert it in any way, it's always just good habit to do that, okay? I know we're replacing it, so you can say what you want. You can even just cut it. You do you. But anyways, 8mm, 8mm, and up here, 8mm, okay? I'm gonna remove those by turning to the left. You can use whatever you've got to do it. Show you what this looks like. That's what the bolt looks like. You can tell that it's got the little shank there. That's where it goes through the wire, so that you can't really over-tighten it. Over-tightened on these would be, well, broken. So let's not over-tighten them. This one, it's very important to make sure that you remember that these do need to pivot, okay? So that when you're turning the wheel side to side, back and forth, these can do what they're supposed to do. That's part of the reason for the shank. There we are, same exact bolt as the other one. This one right here, I've got the shock in the way. I'm just gonna go ahead and use a wrench, okay? Sticking with my 8mm though. Should be pretty much ready to come out. Come on. There it is. Same bolt as the other two. Easy enough to remember. Now we've got plenty of slack here. If you wanted to, you can go ahead and pop this one up too. I mean, whatever. It's gonna have to come up either way. Here we go, okay? Don't mind that. This is just how I hung the thing, so don't worry about if your truck doesn't have a big orange strap on it. I'm gonna take my 21mm. I'm gonna remove this and this right here. Something to note is this caliper assembly is gonna be super heavy. So when you remove it, you're gonna wanna make sure that you can hang it on something. Maybe the spring here or whatever you can. But you definitely don't wanna let it hang from this brake hose. Super important, you don't wanna put a tug on this. This is under high pressure. Obviously, it's how you stop your vehicle. So we don't really need to get into that so much, but if you have something like this, it's metal, okay? Just hang it from here. We'll have it ready to go. I'm gonna remove these. Once I get it off, I'm just gonna hang it, okay? You can use something like a wire tie or whatever you wanna use. Just make sure it's strong enough so this caliper does not wanna fall and put a tug on that brake hose. So to continue, we'll take out our bolt. I'm just gonna start it back in a couple threads, just so it can't fall down. I'll take this one out. That up there. It's the same as this one, by the way. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and take out this bottom one while I'm holding onto the caliper. Slide it off. There we are. There's our caliper. You can just take a peek if you want. Make sure you don't see any fluid coming out. You see any fluid coming out, well, you know what time it is. Time for a caliper, that's what it is. Obviously you'd want to replace those as a pair, by the way. So anyway, I'm just gonna hang it. That puppy's going nowhere. Nice. Let's keep rolling. I'm gonna grab a lug nut. I'm gonna put it on here. Just gonna start it on so this rotor can't go anywhere, okay? Now what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna remove this rotor from the hub. To do that, there's multiple ways of doing it. It's kind of a preferential thing, what you need to do, but basically just get your rotor off. If you end up using a hammer, you want to be careful hammering on a braking surface, obviously. It'll cause a pulsation. Keep that in mind. Something that might be a great idea to do is to try to get a lot of this corrosion that's around here, get that out of the way, maybe try to pick it. And if you want to spray it again with some penetrant, it's up to you, and then we'll go ahead and start trying to get this rotor off. You know, there's going to be multiple ways that you can go about doing this. You could try to hit with your hammer along here. You also take the risk of hitting your studs, which you're going to be replacing anyway. That comes with the wheel bearing. So it might be a great idea to go along here. It's completely up to you. Or you can just take something as simple as a piece of wood, whatever you might have access to, and just kind of use that in between your hammer and your braking surface and try to bonk it off, okay? So whatever you decide you want to do, you do you. We just need to get this rotor off the hub. Make sure there's a lug nut on there, okay? We don't want this rotor, you know, being able to just go pew, fall off, hit you in the foot, hit you anywhere. So I'm just gonna go this way for now. See if I can break it free. Give it a little spin. It's coming. Not gonna have much wood after this. There we are. So we got it broken free. Now we're just going to get our rotor off of here. It's going to be super heavy. There we are. We've removed our rotor. We'll check it out. Seems like it's pretty good. This is going to be a brake pulsation, by the way. Just to state, but it's not my truck, so I'll move along. So now I'm going to continue removing this ABS wire. This just runs along right here. Just going to use a small pocket screwdriver. See if I can get it off here. There we are. Our next wire is right under here. So I'm going to use my little forky tool. Slide that out. There's a little red connector right there. That's actually a lock, okay? So we need to unlock it. I'm just going to try to get it in between here and try to push it upward. So whatever you need to do to get it up. Funny. Let's see if I can get it. Sometimes they stick. It'd be preferable if I didn't break it, which it looks like it's gonna. So I'm going to try to spray it with some penetrant, let it sit for a second, and we'll move along. So I've got this sprayed down now. It's been sitting for a little bit. I'm just going to take my small pocket screwdriver. I'm going to try to come in from the bottom right here. You can see the little red tip. And try to pull it up. And then like that, just popped up. Now I can get that. Cool. Right here, black tab in the center. I'm just going to try to squeeze that. Okay. At the same time, I'm going to try to pull down on this. If that doesn't work, you can always just come under here and do the same thing. Just going to pry. See if I can get my screwdriver in there. Sometimes you have to be a little forceful with things like this, but obviously, you know, you don't want to break anything that we're not supposed to break, like this end of the ABS wire. Okay? So you can, like I said, you can try to get under here. You can try to pry up on this. Try to give it a tug if you want. If it doesn't seem like it wants to come out that way, and it did. But anyway, if it didn't seem like it wanted to come out that way, you just take some pliers, hold onto the back side, squeeze right up against here. That should give you plenty of grip to want to pull this down. Okay? Essentially, disconnect it. Look up inside your wiring harness real quick. Look for any funny colors. You don't want any rainbow colors in there, okay? When it comes to electrical, rainbow colors are bad. All right? I'm just going to get the rest of this ABS wire out of the way. Okay, turn this, I can see. There's a stud that comes through from the wheel bearing, through this knuckle, and then it's held on by a nut there, one over there, and one over on the other side. I'm just gonna spray those with some penetrant spray. I'm gonna spray around where the wheel bearing goes through the knuckle as well. And then I'm gonna leave it, and I'm gonna move on to the next part, which would be removing the locking hub out front. So I'll grab my penetrant, eye protection of course, just in case anything comes flying back, hits me in the face. Worst case scenario, it just messes up my beard, which would be horrible, but at least I'm not blind. There we are. Got plenty of penetrant on there now. Now we'll move ahead to the next step, removing these Torx head bolts right here on the locking hub. Okay, so here we are. We've got Torx bits, right? Or Torx head bolts, I guess you'd say. They're T27. This is what the tool looks like right here. Okay, so now I'm gonna remove these 3 bolts right here. I'm gonna use a T27 bit, Torx bit 27, and I'm gonna put them in here. I'm gonna turn them to the left. There's my bolts. All 3 are the same. That's nice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to separate the locking hub from the hub unit itself. You can use whatever you've got to do it. This is what I've got in my hand, so I'm just going to use this. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. Don't judge me. I'm just going to try to pry here. There we are. We'll remove our locking hub unit. That's what it looks like. Nothing too crazy special about it. We're going to replace the seal that should go right there. And yeah, now we can see inside there. Definitely looks like we had some water getting in there at some point. There's a snap ring in there. That's probably going to be the hardest part of the job. You might hear me kicking and fussing and crying a little bit, but I'm sure we'll get it done. That's what we're here for. Here we go. Bring on the pain, right? We've got our snap ring. This is what's actually located in there. This is just the new one that came with the bearing. Thank you, 1A Auto. We've got some snap ring pliers. We want it to be able to go inside these little holes, right? And then when I squeeze, I want to be able to separate. You'll watch right here. That's going to separate, and it's going to release from the axle. Once it releases from the axle, I'm going to try to pull it and work it out, and then I'm going to replace it with this quality new one right here, okay? When you're doing it and you're deep inside there, it might slide off a few times and you might keep going like this, bang, and squeezing your fingers, right? Bang, every time you're trying to get it on there, bang, you get your fingers in between here. It's gonna hurt, okay? It might seem like it's easier just to grab it and go this way, but don't. Try to keep your fingers nice and safe and squeeze, full-handed, okay? That's just from doing this seemingly forever and hurting myself plenty of times. A little bit of experience passed down. So here we go. Fingers are safe, everybody's safe. I'm just gonna try to squeeze it. Holy cow, that's never happened before. All right. No crying or fussing or anything that time. That's my first time ever, and it was caught on camera. I'm gonna save that one. I've got a 21 swivel, right? Swivels, extension, 1/2-inch air gun. You do you, but it's a 21mm nut back there. Safety glasses, of course. I'm just going to turn these to the left, try to blast them off. We've got all those out. We've got one still on there a little bit. Our next step is to separate the bearing from the knuckle. This is the good luck part, okay? Probably the second hardest part. And, well, I guess it really wasn't that hard to do that snap ring this time, but generally speaking, it really isn't that fun. So as long as you've got that snap ring out of there, now you're clear to get this bearing out of here, okay? Okay, so here we go. I want to show you a pretty neat trick on trying to remove the wheel bearing from the knuckle. All we want to do basically right now is break it free, right? That's going to be the hardest part. Once we break it free, we can get some penetrant in there and we can really get to working at it. But a lot of times getting it to break free from the knuckle is super hard, causes a lot of banging and issues, and it's just going to be a pain. So we're going to do something different. We're going to grab our nut for our tie rod. I want to get my tie rod back here. I'm just going to get back into the knuckle where it belongs. I'm going to use my 21. I'm going to retighten it on there. There we are. A 21 short. This is impact socket, by the way. You don't want to use chrome. We're going to use an extension. We're going to go to one of our studs that we have in the back here. We're going to make sure that we have a nut on there. At least 5-6 turns in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get inside the vehicle, I'm going to start it up, and I'm going to turn the wheel to the left, and that'll press my extension up against this right here. Once it gets to the point where it's bottomed out, I'm going to continue, and just the force of the power steering on this, because it's super strong, is going to apply pressure to the wheel bearing and try to separate it for me. So hopefully the truck will do the majority of the work for me in this instance. All right, so I'm going to hop in, I'm going to spark it up, I'm going to turn the wheel, and I'm going to hope it works. Okay, so here we go. What I'm going to do is just by hand, I'm going to try to turn this just so I can get this all lined up and just barely touching. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everybody is safe and clear. And I'm going to turn the wheel up inside the vehicle with it running. So I'm going to get it so it's lined up where I want it, just like that. That's going to be a perfect pressure point. It's going to put pressure between this right here, the knuckle, and it's going to hopefully press my bearing out. Okay? It can't come out all the way. I've got nuts on there and everything, so we don't have to worry about that. But safety first. Make sure you don't have anybody's face anywhere near there when you're doing it. I'm going to get up in here. I'm going to start the vehicle. Might be a little loud. This is a diesel. Here we go. All right, now I'm going to release it. Just going to see if it worked. Yes, we've got separation. That's all we need. All we needed was a little bit of separation. Perfect. So now that we've got that, we're going to go ahead and blast it with our penetrant again, let it work its magic, and then we'll continue on. All we need is just a little bit, and it gave us what we needed. So now we're going to go with the assumption we have our tool in here, we know what we're going to do, right? Something that I like to mention is when you're in there and you do start up the vehicle, you don't want to step on the brake because your caliper will squeeze and there's going to be nothing there for it to squeeze against, so you're going to push your caliper pistons out and it's going to cause an issue. Also, when you start the vehicle, if your ABS wire isn't plugged into the vehicle still, because we already disconnected it, right? You're going to get an ABS light. Maybe you already have one or maybe you don't. At this point, you can go ahead and reconnect this if you want, or don't, but you're going to have an ABS light if you don't, okay? So at that point, you just need to get it cleared, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So now that you know, don't step on the brake. If you don't want an ABS light, plug back in this. Now that you know that, we'll continue on, and I'm going to show you how to remove the wheel bearing. So now I'm going to remove our 21 millimeter head nut right there. This is going to fall down again, right? So we want to be careful for that. You know, whatever you used to put it up before, whether it was strapping or you just let it dangle, whatever you did, just have it ready. Okay. It's been pressed back up in here. So once again, keep your nut on there, bonk on the knuckle. This is going to come down and then you can situate it however you need to do, okay? Nuts on there, I'm safe. I've got my safety glasses. I've got my big fabulous hammer. I'm going to whack the knuckle. Bing, bing. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Get this back down. Bring it over here. I'm just going to get it tied up for safety's sake. So with our new bearing, it's important to remember it comes with brand new studs. Okay? So, you know, the bearing itself doesn't come with new nuts. So you don't want to go ahead and mess up these nuts. We want to make sure we save these. Okay? But it does come with new studs. So we're really not worried about messing up any of the threads. Now what you can do is you could take a hammer, bonk, bonk, try to get it out of there, being careful for your axle or damaging anything else that's around there. You know, try as you will. Try to get that one up there. You can probably spin the axle. You know, you do you, boo-boo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my air chisel and I'm just going to try to drive it out, okay? I do want to make sure that that bearing does not fall out on its own while I'm hammering on this one. So all I'll do is I'll just make sure that at least one of the studs, not one that I'm hammering on, has a nut on it, okay? That's going to make it so this bearing can't fall off, hurt me, damage the floor, I don't know, anything really. It's safe. Safety first. Here we go. I'm going to use my air chisel just right on the stud. I'm going to try to drive it out. See if anything's happening. Looks like it's starting to walk a little bit. It's coming out. Our penetrant spray is doing its job. Very nice. All right, cool. So now, you know, you can go over here, go over on the other side, over here, on the other side. Just keep walking it back and forth, because if you keep going on one side, what's going to happen? You're just going to kink the bearing in. It's going to get stuck, right? So just turn it. We'll turn it. We're going to come in from this side and hit that one. Okay? Same thing. You do you. Use your hammer, use your air chisel, whatever you've got access to. Just try to drive it through. Let's say you're hammering, you're hammering, you're hammering. It's not coming off. It's taking its time. It's becoming a real pain in the butt, right? You've had enough. What about if we took our hammer and we hit right here, right? Bang! Being careful for this, obviously. We can get this out of the way. That doesn't matter, it's garbage, but we don't want to mess up our backing plate. You can hit here, try to break it free, come around the other side, hit there, bonk, 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 bonk. Essentially, just get the bearing out of the knuckle, whatever you have to do. So there's plenty of options on what you can do. You come from the back, you come from the front, whatever you need to do to get this bearing off. Just make sure you have at least one nut started on there so the bearing can't fall off and hurt you. All right, so I'm just going to show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to use my big fabulous hammer. I'm going to try to whack on this part of the bearing, okay? And I just want to separate it from the knuckle. Trying to be careful not to damage this backing plate. If you nick it, well, it's your truck. It's probably not really that big of a deal. It's not integral. You just have to try to straighten it out so nothing hits up against your rotor, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and whack this. Yep, first hit, right? But the bearing's coming, so that's nice. Okay, so we got a gap there. I'll straighten all this out after. It's going to look better. We got the nuts on the back side there. Those are actually what was stopping it from wanting to come out further, actually. So that's nice. So we are cruising. Might be a little bit harder to hit it from this side. You know, it depends on if you're a lefty or a righty. Obviously, this side of the backing plate, I really don't want to try to bang. But yeah, so we can just go ahead. We'll bonk over here a couple times, then we'll go back over there, back and forth, and get this bearing off. Cool. That nut's getting pretty close now. I'm going to go back over the other side and check this side nut. That one's really close as well. So I'm going to get it to the point that it's pretty much ready to come off. Just going to try to keep whacking over here. Make sure I got this all the way over. I think this is pretty much ready to come off now. I'm going to get my nuts off of here, hold my bearing. Got our wire ready to come off with us. There we are. Now we've got our bearing off with our backing plate. We'll go ahead and replace the bearing and we'll move along. We have our original wheel bearing from our 2013 Ford F250 that we're working on. And we have our brand new quality 1A auto part right here. This is a wheel bearing assembly. It comes with the studs that you need that go in here for mounting. They're brand new, so that's always great. Last thing you want to do is try to remove these and reuse them again. That's never any fun. Comes with a brand new sensor. Okay, it's got the sensor wire, perfect condition. It's all nice and bundled up so it's not damaged. The sensor, of course, is part of the wheel bearing. You don't want to take the one out of your old wheel bearing and try to switch them because they're pretty much just geared up for each other, okay? So there's our sensor. There's our sensor. We've got our studs. On the bearing right here, there's a little gasket, little rubber O-ring, goes all the way around. We've got a brand new one, okay? Comes with our new wheel bearing. That's very nice. So, as you can tell, oh yeah, to continue actually, 8 lug studs, sorry. 8 lug studs. You can see inside, you get all the grooves and everything. You get the bearing in there. There we are. So now, as you can tell, we have a quality bearing that I would feel free to install in this vehicle, and I'm pretty sure it'll go in pretty easily. We've got all the parts we need. So yeah, let's do it. If you need this or any other part, you can always check us out at 1aauto.com. Thanks. Okay, so now we'll say that it's time to replace our bearing, right? We've got the old one out. We've got the new one right here. We've got our new studs and everything, so that'll make it come up to this height, just so you know. Anyways, new studs, new seal, that goes on the bearing. But what do we have? We have the locking hub. This is just as important as the bearing itself. You want to make sure that it has this seal right along here, and also there's a seal right here. And this helps keeps moisture and debris out, okay? You don't want any water getting in there, any type of debris, or else you might have a hub that looks like this. If this got in much further, it got into where the bearing and the axle and everything is in there, you would have more of an issue, okay? Also, let's say you were trying to take this off of your old bearing, which essentially goes right up on here, okay? You're trying to take out these bolts and one breaks or strips or whatever the case may be. Now you need bolts, right? So let's say that you need a tune-up kit for that. You can go ahead and go on our site. You can get a hub service set. It comes with everything that you're gonna need. Get that right there. This right here. We've got 3 brand new bolts. Same exact as these. Perfect. Those would be great. We've got new seals. Came with 2, just in case you're doing both wheel bearings, or maybe you just want to have one for a bracelet, whatever. But essentially that would go right here, okay? So you can replace this, of course. Set that aside. Right in here, we've got this seal, okay? This is essentially going to ride right along in here, and or basically right there, and then this is going to go right there, okay? So obviously if we were replacing all this stuff, you'd take this off, put on the new stuff, right? Obviously you want to get off the old gaskets, pretty basic. And then you just replace them with our quality set right here. So this has everything you need to service your wheel bearing hub locker, okay? The bolts, seal, right there. You get a new bearing, why not just pay an extra couple bucks, get the service kit, and that way there you know your new bearing's protected. Now it's time to install our studs on the back of the wheel bearing. They just go right in here. Brand new studs, brought to you by 1A Auto Parts, right? So there's multiple ways of putting these in. You could use something like locking pliers or whatever you need to do. The best way that I've found to do it would be, of course, using some thread locker. I'm just gonna put a little bit on the threads here. I'm gonna start it in. You can get it in as far as you need to go. You can get it in almost all the way by hand. That's great. We've got 2 of our nuts that we removed from the back side. They were essentially right here, right? Except on the other side of the knuckle. So I'm just gonna bring those over. I'll put one on like this. Put one on like this. Now I'm just gonna snug them up together. Okay? So now that I've got these 2 locked together, they're not bottomed out on the bottom of the threads. I don't want to strip anything out. I can either use my wrench and try to tighten it, which would be great. Once you get another one in here, you know, you can put a pry bar or whatever you happen to have. You can go that way. Or you can just go ahead and do this. There we are. Now I'm going to hold the bottom nut, and I'm going to reverse this top nut off. Just like that. I'll take this one off. Now we haven't damaged any threads. This is in nice and tight with our thread locker, and we can move along to doing the rest of the other 3. So now I'm going to get to cleaning here. My mom always told me to clean up my room. I got to clean up my mess. I got to do this too, right? Cleaning, cleaning, that's all I do. I got a son of my own now and I'm still cleaning. So here we go. Just gonna get all this gunk out of here. Just try to get it as clean as possible. I'm gonna put on some new grease. Get it nice and lubed up. So, something to mention here is that this black thing in here, this is a seal where your axle rides, okay? See if I can get it to do its thing. There we go. So our axle rides on the inner portion of that seal. So you want to make sure that it's in good shape. It's not torn or ripped or anything like that. This one looks pretty great. We're going to try to clean up around here too. I'm just going to take maybe a piece of sandpaper or a scuffing disc. Just try to clean it up a little bit. Try to get everything as nice and clean as possible before we go ahead and prep our bearing for installation. So I've got my little scuffing disc here. I'm just going to try to smoothen out this surface. I don't want to take off any of the metal there. All I want to do is try to get off the debris. All right. So there was a lot of really high spots there that had a lot of buildup. That would have caused an issue with mounting the bearing, because then the bearing and the backing plate and everything wouldn't have been sat on there correctly or sitting on there correctly. So, you know, it's very important to make sure you clean that up. Of course, clean this back up again. Try to get off the majority of the grease first, so hopefully it'll accumulate as little as possible. I want to get off as much of this metal debris as I can. I don't want anything to get in here and score up the seal that's in there. If you're worried about it and the holes are too dirty for you, you can go ahead and clean those out as well. You can do that with something as simple as a bore brush or whatever you might have. This is a bore brush. This being completely clean really isn't that big of a deal. It's just where the studs go through. So, you know, you don't really have to spend too much time. Go. Just gonna grab a collection receptacle. I'm gonna put it under there, and then I'm just gonna blast this a little bit with some cleaner. And you know, try not to get too much on the seal there. I don't want to dry it out. But essentially the holes, maybe a little bit on a rag, and try to clean this up the rest of the way. Okay, get a clean rag, hand protection, eye protection. I'm just gonna go ahead and blast the hole. Try to get out the majority of that. Spray a little bit on my rag here. Get all in there. This is nice and clean as possible. That looks pretty good. Clean enough for my house. So we've got our seal. This is gonna ride right inside the lip on the wheel bearing here. Okay. So you can take it. You can use a little bit of silicone paste, Vaseline, whatever you want to use if you want to. First, I like to put it into the bearing, just like that. Okay, so now this is situated. It's pretty much ready to go. All right, I'll come up here, and you can use something like silicone paste if you want. Just gonna go right along here. This is right where the seal is gonna ride. So when I slide the bearing in, it's gonna be able to go in nice and easily without kind of peening over or anything like that. Okay. Maybe I'll even put a little bit here. It's all nice and clean stuff. I'm not using old dirty junk. There we go. Cool. So we've got all that done. I'm gonna use a little bit more thread locker. This is preferential. You don't have to use thread locker if you don't want to. You don't really have to do anything if you don't want to, right? Who wants to replace the bearing on a Saturday? Nobody, but we're gonna do it anyway. There we go. Just put it on there. That's where the nuts are going to ride. Okay? So that's ready to go. We are cruising. Next, we're going to need our backing plate. We're going to put it right on here. Then we're going to slide it into the knuckle up there. And then we'll start putting the nuts on and bolting it down. I'm going to use some of my cutters. I'm just going to cut this wire tie. Get right out of the way. We'll recycle that later. I'm going to take my wire. I'm going to put it up through my backing plate, just like this. This up in here. Actually, we'll wait on that. Let's get this stuff lined up. You just want to push on. As you saw, I did nick it with the hammer, so I fixed it the best I could. There we are. Now we're clear to install this into the knuckle. So here we go. We're just going to get the studs into the holes in the knuckle. Slide it in. Just like that. Being careful for our ABS wire, of course. Get that up and out of the way. Okay, we've got our studs shining through. Okay. Now, if you're lucky enough to have access to brand new nuts, I would go with those. We bought some, so I'm going to use those, but if not, you can go ahead and use your old ones. So now I've got my new nuts. You can, like I said, you can go ahead and use your old ones if you want. I recommend using some sort of thread locker. Just going to start them all on, and then I'm going to snug them up. I'm going to do this in a crisscross pattern. So like I said, crisscross. I'm going to start on the bottom over here. Once I get all these on, I'm just going to go around one more time. So I got those tightened down. I just want to let you know that I did look to see if there was torque specs. I couldn't find any, so I just went ahead and made sure that they were tight. I went in a basic crisscross pattern like I showed you, just so when I tighten it up, it won't just be one side's tight and then I try to pull this side in. Maybe it's sitting kind of cockeyed. I don't want that, so I went crisscross, okay? It's the best I could do. I made sure they were tight. These puppies aren't gonna come loose. We're good to go. We'll move along. So our next step would be putting on this snap ring. If you went ahead and you tried doing this on your own and maybe you haven't watched this part yet, you haven't gotten to this point, you might have an issue getting this on, and that's because when you're doing this and you're putting the wheel bearing on, you can push this axle in a little bit, okay? So all you'd want to do is use a pry bar or a screwdriver or whatever you've got. Just give it a little push. There we are. And now we'll be able to get to the groove on the axle where our snap ring is going to go, okay? Easy peasy. Hard part's going to be getting this on. I'm going to give it a try though. Switch over here. I'm a righty. I'm going to get it up close. I'm going to see if I can. Once you feel it get in the groove, there we are. Yep. All right. Now I'm just going to check it. I'll give it a couple little bonks. I'm just going to take my little bar. Just going to go around it. Make sure it's all tapped in. I can't move it around. It's definitely not falling off. I mean, it's okay if it spins a little bit. It is what it is. But as long as it's not going to come out of that groove, that'll never come out. Well, unless you use the pliers, right? Okay, so it's time to put on this rotor. We can either put this one on, or of course you could go on 1aauto.com and get a new one. It's really up to you. Like I said, these marks right here, some people will say it's just a stain, you know, but I can run my finger along it and I can feel it raised. So that right there just means that water was sitting there for quite a while and it did its thing with the metal. Now it's got raised bumps, so every time that you step on the brake, your brake pads are going to squeeze on this, right? And then as it comes around, bump, 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 your steering wheel, boom, 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 as you're braking, okay? You feel a brake pulsation, there's your culprit. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up. I want to try to make sure I don't have any big rust pieces in between where the hub and this rotor are going to mate, okay? They need to be directly right up against each other. There can be nothing in between them. Very nice. So that looks pretty good. We'll take a little bit of our copper never sees and we're just going to coat the bearing right along where the rotor is going to ride. That's just going to make it easy to get off someday for when I do decide to do that rotor. I'm going to grab the rotor. We're going to get it right up on here. Okay. Holding onto it. Just going to put on one lug nut. Get it on as far as I can. Hopefully make it so the rotor can't flop around. There we are. Very nice. We get that out of the way. Let's give it a little spin. I don't hear any backing plate rubbing against the rotor. That's always nice. If you do hear it, now's the time to fix it, right? It's easy. Whoop. Take this off, bong bong. Give it a couple bonks, that's my thing. All right, so we still have the tie rod off, so we can give this a nice turn. We still got this nice and loose, so we don't have to worry about giving it a tug. We can take our caliper bracket, we'll slide it back over the rotor, we'll put in our caliper bracket bolts and tighten those up. We'll torque them and everything, and then we'll move along. These mount the caliper bracket to the knuckle, okay? We've got a little bit of thread locker. You don't really need a lot. Kind of looks like I put on a lot, and maybe I did, but you don't need that much. Just enough to really hold them in. These are going to be torqued down to 166 foot-pounds anyway, so the odds of them loosening up on their own, well, it's pretty doubtable. But I like to use thread locker. You do you, boo-boo. It's your brakes. I'm going to take this, bring it around, being careful for my ABS sensor, of course. And you also want to watch your brake hose, because when you spun it around, maybe you brought it around completely. Now it's making a cute little curly Q squiggle. Maybe you like that. It's not actually very practical for your braking system. So let's try to make it so it's in a nice straight line. Fluid can flow without restriction. It's always very important. Just get the caliper going on. The hose is going in a nice straight line. It's not twisted or anything like that. Looks good. A little bit of a curve, but that's okay. As long as it's not twisted around. A little pigtail or whatever you call those. Torque on these is going to be 166 foot-pounds, which is quite a bit. So the odds that you're going to tighten them up too much by just blasting them on real quick is pretty low, but I am going to torque it once I get it bottomed out. Just grab my torque wrench and go 166. It's with my 21mm socket. So now we're going to put a little never seize on the bolts that we took out that hold the ABS wire. 1, 2, 3. We've got our 3 8mm head bolts. Let's get these all started in here. You just want to be careful because with the tie rod undone, this can swing very far, which could put a tug on your ABS sensor wire. So keep that in mind. Once you start bolting this in, you want to make sure that you don't turn that tie rod, okay? And we remember that when these were fully tightened originally, or when they were on, these can move around quite a bit. That's very important. It's a shanked bolt. So when you're tightening it, it doesn't need to be tight to the point that this doesn't move. That means that you way over tighten them. Okay, I'm just gonna tighten those up with my 8mm. We'll move along. Feels good. Get this out of here. Still moves. Still moves. Everything can flow freely. Seems pretty good. Let's take our cable, plug it in a little hole here. There we are. We'll dangle this off the side. We're going to plug this in a minute. We've got our tie rod. Get our nut, our little castle nut thing. Just going to bring it up through here. We're going to tighten this up with a 21mm, and then we're going to torque it down. Just going to bottom this out. Now I'm going to torque it to 85 foot-pounds. We've got our cotter pin. We've got our little lock. We want to make sure that one of these slots, which there's a whole bunch of them, line up with the hole in that stud, okay? You can keep turning it, easy peasy. We're going to stick our cotter pin through, and then we're just going to bend it. It's got 2 little legs, so you can make one go one way, one the other if you want. All that really needs to happen is this thing's bent, and it can't work its way out, so this pops off, and this nut somehow breaks free. I mean, does it seem like any of it's really possible? No, but precautions, 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 right? So there we go. We got all that together. Now we can move on. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put on the rest of our ABS wire, and then we'll get our locking hub in. We got this little clip, got a little channel on that, a couple little prongs on this. Just slides in. See if I can get it. It's always the most delicate stuff that's the hardest, right? Just lock that in. It's going nowhere. Cool. Just gonna grab a little bit of silicone paste. I'm gonna put it right inside the electrical connector for the vehicle. Make sure it's clean, obviously. Clean paste. You don't want to put something dirty in there. But anyway, that'll just help keep the moisture out of there. I'm gonna connect the two together now. There it is. I got my little lock. Let's push that down. Bring this over. I'm gonna put it in its slot right there. There we go. It's happy to be home. We tightened everything up. Torqued. Perfect. Let's move along to the locking hub. I'm gonna use a little copper never seize. I'm gonna go all inside all these little channels right here. You can do that, or you can use some kind of grease if you have it. It's just gonna make it so it can slide in easy, and then somewhere down the line if you have to take it back apart for some reason, it'll come out easy. It's pretty good. All right, let's clean this off. There we go. Now I'm gonna grab our set. It's gonna come with a new gasket and new bolts and everything like that. If you didn't get the set, I recommend it. You can go right on our site. But anyway, I would use a new set. You need new gaskets, right? Assuming you don't have it, I guess just clean it up, do the best you can, and put it together. Right. So we've got our kit. We've got our locking hub, right? Kit, locking hub. Perfect. Let's get to work. This right here is this gasket, okay? You don't want to put this gasket on over that. Just take a little bit of time, clean this off. You can use something like a razor blade, whatever you have access to. Just get it off of there, okay? Once you get this completely off, we'll clean up the edges. You know, making sure that you got off all the little bits. You want a nice smooth surface. So I've got it cleaned up as good as I could. There's no raised surfaces. It's a little bit discolored, but I'm really not too worried about that. I can take this seal, I can slide it on, or I can go ahead and open this up. Grab one of these Cool Kid bracelets, put it on my wrist. I'm gonna save it for later. And I'm gonna use this one. Replace that with a brand new one. Very nice. Okay. Now I'm just gonna take this and slide it over. Right here, there's a little guide pin. So I'm just gonna slide that right over, okay? There's a small hole here. There's a big hole in the gasket there. Small hole, small hole, big hole. So just put the guide pin through one of the small holes and the others should line up. Now I'm gonna grab my bolt kit, my tools, and I'm gonna go back over the vehicle. I've got my little kit with my bolts. I'm gonna carefully open it. I guess I could take off my bracelet now. I'm gonna take my locking hub. Just gonna slide it in. You might have to give things a little bit of a twist. See if you can get them slid in. That little guide pin right there just slides into any of the holes, okay? You don't have to be too worried about which one. It just goes in. There we are. 3 holes, 3 bolts. Very cool. So we'll go ahead and put these in. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these in. I'm using my T25 Torx bit, okay? That's this thing. Same thing I used to remove it, I'm gonna use to install the new ones. Just gonna start it in. I'm not gonna fully tighten it until I get all 3 started in. Okay, now I'm just gonna go ahead and snug these up. I'm gonna use a ratchet for that so I can make sure they're snug. They're just small bolts. They're really not very, heavy duty or anything like that. So use your best judgment. Once you get it bottomed out, you can maybe just give it a little bit extra, but that's pretty much it. You really don't need very much torque on these, okay? The seals are in there. They're gonna do their job. Assuming I can get this tightened at some point. There we are. Cool. There we are. Get that all installed. Now we can go ahead and remove this lug nut. We'll get our wheel back up on here. We should be good to go. It's time to lift this bad boy. As you can tell, super heavy, right? So I don't want to come down like this, try to grab it, lift with my back. Oh, right? I'm just gonna come over like this. I'm gonna put my leg right up against it, okay? I'm just gonna lift it up using my biceps, my leg muscles, and my abs. Easy peasy. Put on one lug nut, hopefully. There we go. That wheel's going nowhere. Now I'm gonna grab the other 7. I'm gonna bottom them out, and then we'll torque them down. So now here we go. We're gonna tighten these up. We're just gonna bottom them out, a crisscross pattern, make a nice snowflake, all right? Grab this one again. There we go. I'm gonna bring it down on the ground and make it so the wheel's just barely touching so it won't spin. I'm gonna torque these puppies to 165 foot-pounds with my 21mm socket. Now it's time to torque these puppies down. We're gonna go in a snowflake pattern. Boom, 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 boom. It's gonna look good, real pretty by the time we're done. It's gonna be torqued down to 165 foot-pounds. Here we go. All right, just gonna go around one more time. Now that it's already torqued down, I can just go in a circle. And it's completely preferential. If you wanted to even go around a second time, you do you, boo-boo. It's just your wheel. Now we've got our center cover. We're just gonna line these up with our lug nuts. Put it over. You can use a rubber mallet, try to bonk it on there. I would recommend a rubber mallet. Don't do this at home, kids. There we go. Use my rubber mallet, and off we go.
Thanks for watching. Visit 1aauto.com for quality auto parts shipped to your door, the place for DIY auto repair. And if you enjoyed this video, please click the subscribe button.